For centuries, the earliest philosophers looked upward. They mapped the stars, calculated orbits, and tried to deduce the material origins of the physical cosmos. But knowing what a star is made of tells us nothing about how a human being ought to live. This disconnect forced a redirection of ancient Greek thought. Philosophers began to look past material causes, water, fire, atoms, to study the nature of human virtue. They turned their attention from the mechanics of the universe to the discovery of ethical being. The catalyst was Socrates. He brought philosophy into the streets, interrogating citizens, demanding strict definitions for courage and temperance, insisting virtue could be rigorously understood. Socrates never wrote anything down. His student, Plato, took this relentless questioning and built it into a comprehensive architecture of political and psychological theory. We see the culmination of that effort here, in Plato's masterwork, The Republic. The text's central objective is discovering the universal definition of justice. Plato tests a specific hypothesis. Is justice intrinsically good, and does operating justly yield a happier life? To prove his case, Plato cannot simply list the benefits of a good reputation. He has to construct a robust logical defense. And to do that, he first has to face down the most dangerous intellectual argument of his era. Early in the dialogue, Socrates runs into an antagonist named Thrasymachus. He is a sophist, a paid teacher of rhetoric, and he holds a deeply cynical, aggressively pragmatic view of human nature. Thrasymachus cuts through the polite philosophical debate with a blunt premise. He defines justice as nothing more than the advantage of the stronger. According to him, morality is a fabricated construct. The elite class in any society designs the laws, the religious myths, and the social norms entirely to serve their own interests. They then train the weaker majority to obey these rules, tricking them into subjugation under the guise of doing the right thing. Follow this logic to its endpoint, and Thrasymachus arrives at a brutal conclusion. If justice is a trap for the weak, then the completely unjust man, specifically the tyrant who seizes absolute power, steals the city's wealth, and dictates the law, is the most successful and happiest human being possible. This is the gauntlet thrown at Socrates. He cannot counter Thrasymachus by appealing to the gods, or pointing to the social rewards of a good reputation. A tyrant already controls those. He must prove that justice benefits the individual, even if they are stripped of all power, wealth, and public approval. To defeat the strongman argument, Socrates realizes he has to abandon looking at external behaviors entirely. He must redefine justice as a hidden, internal reality. The immediate problem Socrates faces is one of scale. Trying to locate and observe justice within the invisible confines of a single human soul is like trying to read tiny text from far away. It is too small and too abstract to see clearly. So he proposes an analytical shift. If the structure of a single person and the structure of an entire city are analogous, then we can read justice written in larger letters by examining the city first. He begins to construct Callipolis, the ideal city in speech. Socrates builds this hypothetical state from the ground up, not as a practical political manifesto, but purely as an analytical model to study human psychology. The premise of this model is that neither the state nor the psyche is a single unified block. Instead, they are composite structures, engines made up of distinct competing drives. By identifying the necessary structural parts of a fully functional city, we can isolate those functions and map those exact same parts directly onto human anatomy. Any city, before it can do anything else, must survive. It needs to generate food, shelter, and material resources. This requires our first tier, the producers. These are the farmers, the craftsmen, and the merchants who supply the economic foundation of the state. Looking at our visual map, this civic class corresponds directly to the first part of the human soul, the appetitive part. The appetitive part of the soul is driven by primal desires. It craves food, comfort, sex, and the material accumulation of wealth needed to satisfy those urges. It provides the raw energy for survival. But as the city generates surplus wealth and inevitably expands, it will collide with its neighbors. A prosperous city requires defense against external threats and internal disorder. This necessitates the second tier, the auxiliaries or guardians. This is the military and the police force. Mapping this military class back to the individual gives us the second part of the human soul, the spirited part. This part of the psyche is not interested in food or money. It is driven by the desire for honor, victory, and reputation. It is the seat of anger, pride, and the capacity for courage. However, a crucial problem emerges. While the appetitive part provides necessary energy, and the spirited part provides defense and enforcement, neither possesses the capacity for long-term objective direction. They are blind drives. To prevent the military from exploiting the producers, and to prevent the producers from hoarding resources blindly, the city requires a final guiding authority. This brings us to the apex of the city, the third tier, the philosopher kings. Correspondingly, this ruling class maps to the final, highest part of the human soul, the rational part. Reason is not motivated by money, nor is it interested in glory or honor. Its sole driving force is the pursuit of truth, knowledge, and calculation for the good of the entire system. This is a sharp departure from typical Athenian politics. Leaders of the era, like Pericles, were military commanders driven by imperial ambition, a manifestation of the spirited desire for glory rather than strict rational truth. Through this city-building exercise, Socrates has mapped the turning mechanics of motivation. Human beings are not single entities. We are a composite engine housing three potentially warring factions: appetite, spirit, and reason. Now we can return to Thrasymachus's challenge. He claimed that the tyrant, who operates solely for power and profit, is the ideal human. Let's see what happens to our structural model under those conditions. Platonic injustice occurs when the lower tiers violently usurp roles they're unsuited for. With reason overthrown, the psyche is hijacked by chaotic appetites. Lacking natural limits, the soul falls into brutal internal anarchy, at war with its cravings. Look at the tyrant through this lens. He might project an image of absolute external power, dictating laws and hoarding gold. But internally, his rational faculty has been utterly enslaved by his bottomless appetites. He is driven by paranoia, insatiable hunger, and uncontrolled rage. Far from being the happiest man, Thrasymachus's successful tyrant is structurally diseased. He is unfree, chained to his own compulsions, and completely miserable. Injustice at the psychological level is self-destructive. True Platonic justice is structural health, each part doing its proper work without meddling. Reason calculates the good. The spirited part acts as an ally, enforcing commands with discipline. And the appetitive part is safely moderated, satisfied within healthy limits. Under this definition, justice is not an artificial social contract imposed by the elite. It isn't even primarily about external behavior. It is the objective, optimal operating condition of the human mind. This is how Socrates defeats Thrasymachus. Justice is intrinsically profitable because psychological health is inherently better than psychological disease. To be just is to possess a unified, balanced, and free mind. By grounding the city in the soul, Plato repositioned the central task of philosophy. He demonstrated that the search for truth begins with the internal architecture of the self.